What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Giant Slayer Ministries. Again, my name is Pastor Dave, and I want to dive right in. Today, I want to talk to you guys about what happens when God instructs you to build. What if God knocks on your door and says to you, I want you to build an ark? Or why would God ask you to build an ark? Well, today, we're going to talk about when God instructs you to build. Why would God ask you to build anything, especially even an ark? Well, let me say it this way. Anytime God has ever asked anybody to build anything, it was for the sole purpose of preservation. God will always ask you to establish something or build something so that you could bring preservation for other people. See, God is a God that thinks about people. He's not just a God that is selfish, and he's not just a God that thinks about you, but he's a God that will consider you and the next generation from generation to generation, even unto the third and fourth generation to come. So know that God is going to always put other people ahead of you. There'll always be somebody that God will be thinking about through you and or through your lineage. So let's take a look at Noah, who built an ark for God out of Genesis chapter 6, verses 9. Let's go all the way till the end, which is 22. And I want to share some things with you from this thought because Noah did it in such a way in obedience to God that he remembered so many things, including the details. So it says this in Genesis chapter 6, verse 9. It says, this is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence. Because of them, I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. God was so strategic with Noah, he told him exactly how he wants him to build it. So anytime God is telling you to build something or is getting ready to instruct you to build something, he's always going to be sure to tell you exactly how to do it. So these are the details. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Also, make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit, 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish, but I will establish my covenant with you. And you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. God is always going to ask you to build or establish something for preservation of life. Verse 19 says this, you are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him to do. Guys, I want to jump back to verse number 20 real quick, because there's a saying that says, if you build it, they will come. And this is where a lot of people get that saying from. If you build it, they will come. If you build what? Build what God is telling you to build, and build it according to how he tells you to build it. And guess what? Because God is a God that considers others, and he's a God of preservation, then those that need that ark or need to be saved shall come because of the way that you built it. It will attract. And look at verse 20. It says, two of every kind of bird or of every kind of animal and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will do what? They will come to you to be kept alive. Are they really coming to you, or are they coming to the supply or the source that God established through you? And that's what we want to remember. Two of every kind. That is a type of covenant. Things that produce life, okay? It has to be that two of every kind comes to you, because two of every kind is how life is reproduced. And that means the reproduction of life will come to you to be preserved. And this is how God works, man. God does not consider just you and what it is that you have to do, but he's constantly thinking about others as well, even unto the third and fourth generation. So whenever you get ready to build something, think about this. Let's actually get into 3 topics. I want to share with you 3 thoughts that anytime God instructs you to build something, these are the 3 thoughts you want to have while preparing to get ready to build. Let's jump right into that. First of all, let's consider before the build. All right, what are some key things that you want to consider before you actually start pulling out your tools and everything else and begin to build? One of the things that you really want to consider before you start building is you want to be sure that you're hearing from God. Whenever you're getting ready to build, don't just get out there and start building. There's some things that you need to do. And the first thing you want to do is make sure that what you believe you're hearing is coming straight from God. Once you know that you know that you know, because you've asked God to confirm it through so many different ways that you are hearing from God, the next thing you want to do is pay attention to the details. Now, there's a saying in this world that Satan, the devil, lives in the details. Well, it's our job as believers and men of God and women of God to kick the devil out of the details. So check out the details and make sure that everything that you're hearing detail-wise is directly from God, including the location. One of the biggest things you can do is make sure that the details that God tells you, jot them down. Jot them down as never before. And then the third thing you've got to do is count up the cost, including the materials and the labor. Now listen, remember, if God tells you to do it, he's going to supply every need. You won't have to worry. You will need to be concerned, and you do need to make a plan, but you don't have to worry. If, in fact, God himself told you to do it, then you must rest assured that you know that God is going to supply your every need to fulfill this plan. And so that is the 3 things I want you to consider before you begin to pick up a hammer, begin to purchase nails, begin to purchase wood and material. You must always consider what it is that you heard and who you heard it from. First of all, be sure that you heard from God. Second of all, pay attention to the details. Make sure you jot everything down. And third, count up the cost, including the materials and the labor, but also know that God's going to work it out for you. Now, I want to talk to you about while you're building. Listen, 3 things to consider while you're building. It doesn't matter what it is you're building, an ark, a new house, a business, your first paper from school, your whatever it is that you decide God wants me to do this. Anything God asks you to do is something that you're going to have to build or produce, including if it's in your mind. So the second thing you need to consider, besides before you build, is while you build. What are you doing while you're building? You've already considered the fact that God told you to build it. So you've made a decision, you've stepped out on faith, you've bought materials, you've paid attention to the materials and the cost, you've counted it up, you've thought about your location. Now you've got everything you need, the materials are sitting there, and you're prepared to start putting hammer to nail. What you want to do is, while you're building, you have to anticipate, number one now, you have to anticipate that rainy days are going to come. Anything that you do for God, as long as it's for God and righteousness, things are going to come against you. You're going to come against resistance. Rainy days are going to come. So if rainy days are going to come, you must make up in your mind through anticipation that God is going to work it out. And you got to remember in those rainy days to trust God and remember the promise that he gave you. In fact, many people are going to talk about you. Many are going to join your team and they're going to walk away from you. These are the kinds of things when rainy days happens that can discourage you to the point where you want to quit. But you won't quit because you've already anticipated ahead of time that rainy days were going to come. So while you are preparing to build and while you are building, anticipate, number one, that rainy days are going to come. Trust God and remember the promise. Number two, the second thing you've got to do while you're building is build with complete excellence and passion. Never settle for less when you're building something. Never take second to best. Take the best. And if you cannot afford the best in the season, but you remember that you heard that God told you to build it, then be patient and wait, because the supply that you will need or the income that you will need to purchase the best is going to come. This is the thing you got to remember now during the building that you heard directly from God. And if while you're building, rainy days come, and at my number 2 point, build with excellence, you won't cut corners. You never want to cut corners when you determine you're going to build something for God and build it with excellence. Always remember every bit of detail that God told you. And do not cut corners. Trust God. He will supply the need. Never cut corners or settle for less, even if you have to wait. And the third thing I want to say is remember that balance is key. When we get so dedicated to working for God and we get so dedicated to doing some things, we'll dive all in. Every one of us that can see the vision and we're passionate about it and we're building with excellence. But remember that God expects you now to, from time to time, even as Jesus did, go to the other side and take a break. You're still going to have family members. You're still going to have loved ones. You still have your day job. You still have other things that you have to make sure you don't lose while counting up the costs, including your sanity and or your physical strength. You don't want to get sick while you're so busy working. So take time to go away sometime. Take a vacation. Spend time with the family. Turn the phone upside down. In fact, turn the phone off while eating dinner with the family. Spend time rejuvenating yourself. Okay? So we're talking about while you're building, what are the 3 things you need to do? Remember, the first thing is anticipate that rainy days are going to come. Okay, people are going to walk off the job. They're going to quit. You're going to have to find replacements. You're going to hear people talking about you. Number 2, build with complete excellence. Do not cut corners. Okay, don't let nobody talk you into what God didn't tell you to do. Don't cut any corners. And number 3, remember that balance is key. Every now and then, just take a moment for yourself. Go away with your families and relax. Take a break, go to the other side of the lake and play some dominoes or Uno, one of my favorite games. And make sure you just relax, get some sushi in you or something and just relax. And then last, I want to talk about after the build. What happens now? You have processed in your mind about before the build. You've thought about and anticipated what's going to be taking place while you're building. And now the last thing I want to talk to you about is what happens after the build. What do you do as a successful entrepreneur or a successful steward of the things that are of God after you finish building what God told you to do? The first thing you want to do when you finish building that thing that God told you to do is establish the systems of operations. You got to think about now, the building is done, the work is done, the labor is done, but now you have to establish systems and protocol and rules and regulations. How do people come in? How do people go out? What are the processes? Who gets the alarm codes? Who has the training? You have to establish your people. You have to establish the systems. You have to establish protocol and operations. What is the process? How do you enter? How do you exit? who has access, and what are the ways that the people with access, how do they move while they're here? Okay, so first thing after the build, establish the systems and the operations. The second thing after the build is to train up your team and leadership in preparation for your absence. It's easy for your team to function and rock with you when you're there. But if you're the leader now and you're the Don and you're the manager on staff, in your absence now, who is going to stand and cover and make sure things are getting done? And so you have to now take the processes and systems of operations that you've established, and you've got to train key people that you trust in leadership and make sure they have the training necessary to carry out whatever it is you're asking people to do while you're absent. Why? Because someday God will take you off the face of this earth, and that vision that he gave to you, if you are to build this thing to last forever now, should sustain itself even in your absence. And so that is the main thing that you want to consider after the build. You got to establish your systems and your operations. But immediately following that, you got to train up your people on how to deal with the systems in operation. And then you have to establish leadership in preparation for your absence. You'll be able to sleep at night when you go away on your vacation, knowing that the people that you trust is sitting there making things happen while you're gone. You don't have to be stressing out. I wonder what's going on with the building. I wonder what's going on with the processes. I wonder what's going on with the people. You don't have to worry about that when you've trained up people that you trust to handle and take care of the things that you've left them in charge of. All right? So just to recap real quick, the first thing you do when God instructs you to build, you think about what you're going to do before the build. The second thing is you consider what you're going to do while building. And the third thing is you think about and look at the faces, if not even the names, the offices that people need to hold after the build in preparation for your absence. And that's basically it. And then the last thing, the number 3 point that I want to bring up for after the build is always give the thing that God instructed you to build back to him. You never want to take ownership of that. He instructed you to build it, and he wanted you to build it for his purpose and his glory. So the best thing we can do is give it back to him. And then after we do that, we remember that this thing belonged to God, and we give it back to him wholeheartedly. Okay? And then we never marry ourselves to the work or to the finished product. We always marry ourselves to God. We know that God uses us as instruments to do what it is he asks us to do, but we never marry ourselves to the things he assigned us to be stewards over. We marry ourselves to him and his purpose and for his glory, and we give the things that he asks us to do back to him because it's for him and for his glory. And so the third thing, once again, is you give it back to God. You divorce yourself from it and be prepared to see new leadership and new ownership take place even after you're gone. That is what's supposed to happen because God is a generational God. He's not going to just consider you and you alone. He's going to build something through you for the next generation and for generations to come. And so if you or I want to see this thing outlast us, we want to see this thing and this vision go beyond our grave, then we must remember that we are to give this thing back to God. We don't own it. We say, thank you, God, for allowing us to be a part of this, but then we give it back to God by training up new leadership, new staff, and letting them take the wheel. You know, they may say all of this system, all of these systems and operations are old now. They were for the past when Papa Dave was in office. But this has changed. Times have changed. Let's establish new systems. You can't go in there talking about, no, God told me this. This is what we're doing. That's not what we're going to do. Once we give this thing back to God that God told us to build, then we must then trust him with what he decides to do with it in the future. And so, guys, today it was really short. I just wanted to share with you, what do you do when God instructs you to build? And this is what you do. Number one, think about what you do before the build. Number two, Think about what you do while you're building. And number 3, think about what needs to be done after the build. And here's the thing, guys. Build it with excellence, because no matter what happens, if you build it, the people will come. They will come. Just remember that once you build that thing with excellence, people who walk through the Ephesus, people who walk through the building will say, man, whoever built this with an excellent eye. They remembered the details. And so the details, guys, will speak volumes long after you're gone. And that's going to attract other people of excellence, and they will come. You just have to remember the promise. Remember that rainy days are going to come. Remember that people are going to talk about you. Remember that some days you're going to want to quit, but you can't quit because you heard God clearly, and God told you to do it. And because he told you to do it, you can't quit. So keep pushing, keep building, and let's get it done. All right. God bless you. My name is Pastor Dave. I look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Y'all be blessed. Take care.